Sunday morning coffee with Kubeir can be very, very interesting at times. Today is one of those days. A recent Facebook post on our Facebook groups sparked this. I wouldn't call it a controversy because it isn't. It was just a debate kind of a thing whereby some people who were wanting to come to Canada were being discouraged by others, stating that Canada is a scam, Canada is a deception, Canada is a lie, Canada is a big fat propaganda only for the government to make money out of, but actually does not offer any real value. But then, of course, there were opposing views as well, which said that Canada definitely offers what it says it does. So what we thought was a good idea was to sort of bring, opinions of from both sides of the coin and bring them all together in a setting where we can have an open, free flow discussion so that people who are already in Canada or have lived in Canada are immigrants, recent immigrants, old immigrants, who can share their own experiences and tell you whether it has worked for them, did not work for them, or why is that happening. Of course, keep that in mind that this is all personal experiences. Hey, I'm not subscribing or not subscribing to any of that, and I'm going to stay neutral here because I'm an immigration consultant, so I basically would be a little biased pro Canada for sure, because hey, mera dhanda chalta hai, this is my business, right? But that's not the point. The point is whether I have those experiences or not. But I'm going to stay neutral because that's the only way to do it. I might ask some probing questions here and there once I see something of that nature, but it's going to be primarily neutral from my side. But I would let the people who I would be inviting here, or who are already here, most of them are here, few more to come, but as we move on, and they would obviously talk about, we have different things that we're going to talk about. And any one of you in the audience, if you have questions, if you have something to add, definitely please keep commenting so that we can then take those as well. If you feel strongly differently about an opinion being expressed, also please comment, and then we can share and talk about that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guests for today. Each one of them will very briefly introduce themselves, telling us how long they have been in Canada, what do they do, where do they come from. Very briefly, just a brief introduction so you have some point of reference. From there on, we'll be talking about what are we going to be talking about? We will be talking about whether Canada is really a deception or a dream. We'll talk about healthcare. We'll talk about racism, job opportunities, housing and other economic factors. We'll be talking about taxes, government benefits, education, whether Canada is an inclusive society that it portrays itself to be. We'll also talk about people at large, and the quality of life. And finally, we will round it up by talking about importance of research. So, first of all, Sudarshan, welcome.
Well, thank you, Kubeir.
So a very brief introduction, guys, 10 seconds at most. Where are you from, where you've come from, how long you've been in Canada, what do you do, and under what stream did you come from? Very quickly.
Yeah, so I moved from Chennai in India. I've been in Toronto for a year and a half. I moved in October 2021, though I had done my soft landing in May 2019. I work in the IT industry in project management. And I came in through the Express Entry Federal Skilled Worker Program.
Okay, excellent. So you're pro-Canada, or you think Canada is deception?
I think there are the things that people should be aware of before they migrate. I wouldn't call it against or anti, but I would say, yeah, there are factors that people have to know before, when they make the move.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the debate. We will get back to you in a bit. Welcome, Kimi.
Hi, Kubeir. So my name is Kimi. I moved to Canada in August 2021, so it's been 1.5 years, same as Sudarshan. I moved from Dubai. I am an Indian citizen, but I was born in India but brought up in Dubai, so I've lived there for 25 years. I work in the banking industry. So that is about me.
Okay.
And as Sudarshan said, there are certain things. I think it's not about being it's not about saying that Canada is a scam, but it's just that people should know a few things, because when you come here, do a soft landing, or you come here as a tourist, you look at the country in a very different manner versus when you actually come and start living over here. So there are a few things it's always good for people to know, and it'll help them probably in their research.
Okay, all right. Welcome, Dave Biswas. How are you?
I'm very good, sir. Thank you so much.
Go for it.
All right. Hi to the entire panel here, and to Kubeir and the entire audience. I'm from Darjeeling, the hills in the northeast in India. Came to Canada 4.5 years back as a student. Spent my entire life savings to pursue my MBA, but I couldn't be happier because it has given me definitely a different perspective. And to answer your question on whether I'm pro or against Canada, I think it's such a subjective topic and it depends on the individual situation. That it can be a pro and it can be a con. Even the same factors can, like, act on whether it being a pro or a con. For me, it has largely been a pro, but there are some cons that I'll get into later. And I guess that's the summary of why we're here today.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Welcome, Bias. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bias Banerjee. I'm a human resource and learning and development professional. I have been in Canada for more than 3 years now, and I'm from India. I'm from Mumbai, and I came here as a permanent resident. I am so the interesting. I am firmly on the side of dream. Canada is a dream, but I believe all of us here, pro or con, we are kind of on the same side in the sense that we are saying the same thing. Canada to me is a dream for those who A, do proper research of the ground realities, and B, who are really aware of their own personal short and long term priorities. So that's from me.
Excellent. Thank you, Bias. Welcome, Veronica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica. I'm an old immigrant, 2008. I applied for PR 3 times before I came as Ontario nominee. I live in Brandon, Manitoba, Hamilton, Toronto, and I am in LA thanks to NAFTA or CUSMA. I mentor a lot of immigrants. I think it's all about networking. And it's hard, but I'm arguing on the pro side. My last job before I moved to the US, I was a director of innovation at one of the largest banks in Canada. So yeah, immigrating is hard. I tried 3 times, but it's worth it. And later we'll get into why.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in today. I also have one more guest who seems to be having an issue. Shashank, can you still connect?
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Thank you. Go for it.
Yeah. Hi to the panel first, and thanks, Kubeir, for this opportunity. So I moved to Canada in 2017 as a student, did my master's, and I stayed in 3 provinces, 5 or 6 cities by now in Canada. And I was eligible for both Canadian Experience class as well as FSW, and I was picked up under FSW for my express entry. And now I've applied for my citizenship, so that's where my journey is. Right? So from a student to a permanent resident, and then now to a citizen, almost to a citizen.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much. So we now have all our guests here. There are a few more expected. I guess they chose not to join in, I guess, for whatever the reason might be. But let's have a fair discussion today. As I said, we will keep it very, very polite. That's the most Canadian thing to do. But let's start with first thing as a subject or as a topic. Is Canada really deception or dream? I know in your introduction, some of you have already mentioned some parts of it. But by and large, why is there this sentiment that Canada is a deception? Why should it even come out as that sentiment? I mean, Canada obviously does promote themselves as an immigrant-friendly country, and they are obviously one of the they're right on top when you come to look at which countries can you migrate to. They've obviously made their programs quite simple and straightforward. But why does this continue to happen? Why are people still thinking it's a scam or it's a deception? Any one of you wants to take a go at this one?
Yeah, may I?
Yeah, please go for it.
So I think the root of this is a mismatch between the expectation before you move and the reality that you see after you land here. A lot of people expect Canada to be a bed of roses, the life to be very comfortable, be able to find a job very quickly, start earning money. But in reality, it doesn't happen for everyone. To be honest, for a majority of the people, life for the first few months is a struggle, and for some even it takes even longer to settle down. So this mismatch between the expectation and reality is what I think is causing this question to come up.
But then, is that Canada's fault?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Yes, Bias, go for it.
Just to add to what Sudarshan said, absolutely. So there's this concept of locus of control where as human beings, we often feel the good things are attributed to us while the bad things are attributed to the rest of the world. So I think that mindset plays a bit of a role in this whole thing. Canada, we are living in the age of information. Everything is there online. We have access to networks, professional networks, and personal networks that we never had 20 years ago, right? Through social media. So the ground realities are different. And I also believe it's not just that people don't do research about the reality. They also don't really know what they want. They have not done a good amount of soul searching to figure out what is it that they value in life, what sort of life do they want, what would make them happy, what would make them at peace. And this, misalignment in their priorities is something that make people miserable once they're here. Even if they find a job, I see a lot of people really sad about missing their families, or not being able to adjust to the lifestyle here and stuff like that. So is that a deception really, or did they got deceived for sure? But the question is someone actively deceiving them, or is that just a mismatch in personal expectations? So
Okay, fair point. Veronica, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think the only comparable experience for me to moving to Canada and settle here is having kids. It's like being hit by a truck, and you have to realize that you'll get out of it, but it will take time. When you said it's Canada's fault, I would say sometimes. Most is on us. But I had 2 or 3 roles that I found out that someone born and raised in Canada was getting paid 20K more than me for the same job. So it took me 5 years to learn to advocate for myself. But now, when I mentor other people, Canada is not a country that somebody else is going to advocate for yourself, whether it's health, education, at the job. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself.
Okay, all right, fair point. Anybody else has anything to add? Yes, Dave Biswas, go ahead.
You know why the Nigerian prince scam works?
Yeah.
It works not because the fault is of the Nigerian prince. It's because people want to be deceived. Deep down, we want to pursue shortcuts. Deep down, we want to do something that's easy. And it's not really, people at fault here as well. It's just how they have been, they have been, I guess, that their social circle is such that they always want to do better in life, and that's necessarily not something bad. But your preparation goes a long way into avoiding these scams. And by scams, I mean not Canada, but there are people who are scamming people with fake jobs, with a lot of easy promises. And that's where I think people get scammed because it's an entire industry. Okay.
Yeah.
So keeping that scam apart, if we are talking about just legally moving in, is that a scam in itself? It can be, as mentioned by others here, when expectations do not align with the reality. I completely agree there. But we are at fault, to answer your question, Kubeir. Canada is not at fault here. We are at fault who feel that we are scammed because we do not prepare enough, we do not research enough, and I guess we'll get a lot into it at the end of the show.
Yeah, okay. Shashank, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it a scam. Rather, I would call it more of pitfalls, which we are ill prepared for if we don't understand. Like moving to a country is not new country is not a small thing, right? All of us, like 25, 30 years that we would have spent in a specific country with all the friends, family, connections, and then displacing ourselves from point A to point B, where the culture is different, where the work life is different, where the economy works in a different way, where your skill sets are perceived in a different way. There requires a lot more, I would say, preparation on an individual, and then we can't just label it with a single brush and then say that Canada is A, B, C, D, right? It's basically like everybody says. Everybody on this panel has already echoed, right? Preparation matters, but it's mostly in terms of I would take that as an individual thing and not as I would say generally labeling Canada as something as yeah, Canada is a scam, right? It's a pitfall that individuals are ill prepared for.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Let's take these things one by one, because I mean, obviously in comments as well, I can see a lot of things, and I just want to sort of address one. Being an immigration consultant, I think I can do that one, and that is people talking about absurd processing times. Absurd processing times. One is here. There are a couple of other comments as well that the applications take too long. Well, guys, the absurd processing times that you're referring to, of course, COVID hit, the situation went out of the window, and hey, I'm not going to defend IRCC or defend Canada by any means. I can't. I mean, I'm no one to defend that. But I'm just going to talk about reality of processing times. You cannot label the country as scam just because the processing times of a government department, because of something which was outside their control, which was like a once in a lifetime situation, completely kicked the processing times out of the window. So let's not keep processing times as a reason why we are holding today's debate, but let's talk about other things which are more relevant here. First of all, I want to bring out healthcare. What do you guys think about healthcare? Canada promotes healthcare. Canada is probably one of the few countries in the world that provides free healthcare, promotes free healthcare, talks about free healthcare. It's part of a big propaganda. I wouldn't say propaganda, but it's a big factor when it talks about why Canada is an immigrant-friendly country and why a lot of people consider Canada because, hey, it's free healthcare. So any one of you have experiences that you can talk about? Yes. Okay. We're all right, everybody. So we'll go this way first with Shashank. Let's hear from you, Shashank.
Yeah, like you see, I am already getting a treatment for my healthcare. So I am a live, I would say, a recipient of the healthcare services that I'm sitting today. But yeah, a little bit of a background on my healthcare experience is that I've accessed healthcare in 3 provinces, 5 or 6 cities rather. And I would say that sure, things can be better, but few things need to be understood by everyone, right? Which I think people are not currently in line with. Healthcare is different from pharmacare, is different from dental care, right? These are the basics. I'd say anybody doing research on Canada should be at least be familiar with these things. And when it comes to healthcare, having a primary physician is, I would say, the golden principle and the golden must-have. And by the long wait times that we have, having that you don't have family physicians, if you have any emergency, I myself have accessed emergency. If you're really faced with an emergency, it kind of catches up to you, right? And I've seen it myself, I've experienced it myself. And the other thing is that one of the things that having access to healthcare in India and versus having access to healthcare in Canada, you don't, doctors and nurses don't cash in on your pain, right? Because that is the worst thing that can happen to you as a patient. And then the third point that I also have with respect to accessing healthcare, which I really like about, is the equity of healthcare, right? Like you can't just throw away some amount of money, some amount of influence, and then say that, okay, I am in front of you versus somebody is behind me. Everybody is treated on an equal basis, and then based on the priority, based on the medical assessment of your emergency, of your healthcare need, actions are taken. Are there areas where things can be improved? Sure. Are there things where things can be done in a better way? Sure, right? But I am pro healthcare. I am pro, I would say, single spender, I would say, type of healthcare system. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I hope you feel better soon. And looking that hand doesn't look very nice, but I hope you feel better soon. Veronica, let's hear from you.
Okay, again, back to my point, you have to advocate for yourself. Healthcare depends a lot on the issue, on whether you have a primary doctor and where do you go. I have 2 high-risk pregnancies, so I was in the hospital for a while, and I managed the healthcare of my parents. My parents don't speak English. And for that, it's been, yes, it's going to take time, but you have to say, okay, how do I get with a specialist? Oh, the specialist will call you and it might take 4 months. No, give me the number of the specialist and I'll call. I think if you're ready for that versus, when we are back home and you can pay for private healthcare, like right now I'm in the US, the healthcare experience is very different. I go and I'm a customer here. There, you have to come with that mindset that I'm going to be way more patient at wherever I come from, but I'm also going to advocate for myself. During COVID, OHIP cards were not arriving. I was phoning to get the OHIP card for my parents. But on the opposite, the last point I'm going to say, I do have 2 high-risk pregnancies. If I had those pregnancies back home, I probably wouldn't have kids today, right? And I have friends who have experienced, unfortunately, cancer recently, and they go to Sunnybrook in Toronto and they get taken care with the best care ever. So if you have an issue that is not urgent or life-threatening, I would say be prepared to wait way more. I've been back home for an appendicitis surgery. I went that many years ago. I think things have changed. And it also depends on the province. I have heard that from friends and family, and again, personal experience, Quebec probably has one of the slowest healthcare systems compared to others. And I will leave the chance now to others to talk. So I'll go back on mute.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Kimi, let's hear from you. I think I read your post, something about healthcare on your post. Go for it.
Yes. So So as I said, right, I've been here only 1.5 years, and coming from a place like Dubai, where we have private healthcare because it's provided to you by your organization, uh, it's very easy to walk into a hospital there and get into an emergency or even see a specialist, versus over here where I do have a private healthcare from my organization, versus I have an OHIP. Now, obviously, coming to a first world country, right? My thought or my vision, again, as people said, you should do your research well, but the thought would be that, okay, if I come here first for free healthcare, if I go to a hospital, or if I want to meet a doctor, it's going to be quick. But it took me 1.5 years, with all honesty, to get even a family doctor. So I got a family doctor actually just 2 days back. So and I had to like follow up for like almost 5 months, because there was somebody who was going to come in that pharmacy, and almost every week my husband and I used to call, or we used to walk in there, that has a doctor arrived, because we didn't want to miss a chance, because there's a long waiting list as well for people to actually get a family doctor. And the way things work here is that you ideally need a family doctor for them to give you an appointment, or to refer you to any hospital or to a specialist. So you are dependent on having a family doctor, or you walk into a place. um, my husband and I, for the first time, got COVID in January this year. And I'm not making this up, but my husband first got COVID, and I wanted to go out and get some medicines. I went to almost 4 to 5 pharmacies, and there was the basic medicines, like you need your Tylenol, you need your cough syrups. They were not available. And that was my biggest disappointment, with all honesty. And the entire COVID, after I contracted COVID as well, we ended up using the medicines that I had actually bought from Dubai. So for COVID, you don't have special medicines. You're just using your basic, your Panadols, or your Disprins, or your Tylenols. I had to use that, which I bought from Dubai, and fortunately, I had that. But for a lot of people, how many of you actually, plan this? You think that, okay, I'm going to a first world country. I'm going to have, at least I'm going to get my basic medicines. I'm not even talking about specialists. I'm not even talking about, if you have an emergency walking in. I've heard stories from my friends where, if their kids have gotten hurt, they had to wait in emergency for almost 6 hours. And the child is crying. So these are also realities. I'm sure a lot of people probably got amazing, when they reached, somebody tended to them, and they got that healthcare. But there are individuals who did not get it. And I don't have kids right now, but I do understand that my friends who have kids who went through that, it was a very painful process for them. Friends who have kids who got fever, they waited in emergency for almost 10 hours for a doctor to come and see them. I think you go in India or you go in Dubai, and I've not lived in India, so I really can't comment a lot about how healthcare works there. But in Dubai, if I had a child, or if even for me, if I had to go to a place for fever, or if I'm not feeling well, I would be tempted to, even in emergency, within like half an hour, 1 hour. But not here. You cannot expect, like, if you take your child to a doctor saying that they have fever, the doctor will prescribe you, give Tylenol is mostly, at most of the times, not available, especially in seasons, because Canada has 4 seasons. Every time season changes, people end up falling sick. So, and those seasons when you don't have basic medicines available, I think for a lot of people, it gets frustrating. People don't openly talk about it, but it's just there, right? Like, these are just, this is my point of view on healthcare. And the expectation would be that at least have basic medicines available for people to take it over the counters.
Okay, fair point. I absolutely agree with you in the sense of emergency healthcare is quite a problematic situation, and I guess it boils down to less healthcare staff, and especially if, okay, and this is another point of view. If you are living in a city, a major urban city like Toronto, Vancouver, Surrey, Montreal, any of the major cities, you will have access to emergency facilities. You will have access to doctors. Of course, you can't find a family physician so easily, as you just said, but you will have access to even walk-in clinics, for that matter, right? At least for somebody to take a look at. But if you are in a smaller city, if you are in a much smaller town, which Canada is trying to encourage immigration to move and spread out, that is where it gets very, very complicated. I met yesterday someone who actually had come through our Facebook groups. He lives in North Quebec. The nearest city for him is 6 hours of drive, and he lives in a small town of 3,000 people, where basically it's under reserved land. It's one of the indigenous communities, and where basically the main occupation for 3,000 people is hunting. So you're goose hunting, you're moose hunting, you're you're turkey hunting. That's what they do, and they don't have a family physician. All right, so every time somebody falls sick, it's a huge factor to consider whether you want to sort of fall into some more critical situation down the road or get to some place. But I absolutely agree, free healthcare it is for sure, but it comes with a bit of a caveat there. Yes, Sudarshan, you have a point of view there as well. Go for it.
Yeah, so I just have some statistics as well as some personal experience to share. So, according to research done by the Fraser Institute, on average, Canadians waited 26.4 weeks to get treatment in 2022. And some, this is after meeting their family physician. So treatment could mean getting diagnostic services or getting treated by a specialist. 27.4 weeks was an average, but for some specialties it was much longer. Neurosurgery was 58.9 weeks, orthopedic surgery was 48.4 weeks. So yes, if you are in a really bad position, if you are, it was a life and death situation, yes, you're attended to immediately. But if that's not the case, I've had a couple of experiences like that. Last year I injured my back. I went and waited for 12 hours in the ER overnight, and I was just sent home asking to take painkillers. And my I literally had an MRI prescription, but I couldn't get my MRI in less than 2 months. I was ready to pay money, but you can't do that in Ontario. Ontario law doesn't let diagnostic services charge patients for their healthcare. So there are Canadian radiologists setting up scan centers in Buffalo for Canadian patients purely because they can bypass this Ontario law. However, this year, I still have a concussion. I was in a minor collision last month. So yes, I went to the ER. Since it was the head, they did a CT scan immediately, but they again sent me home saying take painkillers. I got a referral to a concussion clinic, and it's been 6 weeks now. We've not started treatment at all. So this is, I think, characteristic of any public healthcare system. I believe the UK has something very similar. The NHS also you go through. But there are some times when, as a patient, when you are in a lot of pain, you'd rather spend the money and get the treatment done rather than not, rather than wait the 4 months, 5 months and all. And what Kimi said, we did have this shortage of pediatric Tylenols and Advils for months together. For months, I had friends who had young kids. Literally, they were running from pharmacy to pharmacy trying to get Tylenol. Tylenol is basic paracetamol or acetaminophen. That was not available for months together in pharmacies.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear from Bias quickly. Just come back to you, Dave. Go for it.
Thank you so much. I would like to start with saying that while I'm on the side of dream for most of the things, healthcare is definitely a pain topic. And this is because Canada, while it's not corrupt, there are a lot of systems and processes which are inefficient, and healthcare is one of them. But the question is, what is the lesser of the two evils? We are usually from countries where even a slight bit more of wealth, throwing a little bit of money and influence, as someone said, gets us the best healthcare. Now, we got much better healthcare, but did the rest of our country get that? And that's the question that we need to look at when we compare. Free healthcare is definitely not the best healthcare. There are a lot of things to work out, but I just have a different perspective. When I was in India, my mother, she suffered for years because of a very complicated multi-organ failure, and we spent nearly crores of rupees for her healthcare. Most people would die than have that much, they being able to afford that much. And it would have been much more easier for us and for families like us if they were in a country where healthcare in complex situations were free. People can't afford like insane. Suppose you get like a failure of an organ, or you have cancer and situations like that. So free healthcare has pros and cons. The question is which is lesser of the two evils. So it's important to have that kind of mind space. But that absolutely does not excuse the failure in systems and processes here, that and laws to an extent that go around healthcare.
Okay, thank you. Dave, let's go for your point of view.
I've been in Montreal and Quebec since the last 4.5 years, and I've been waiting to get a family physician since the last 3 years. So, judging by that timeline alone, you can see that the healthcare has a lot of opportunities to get better, and it should definitely get better. The question um, is it free healthcare in reality? We're paying a lot of taxes, so at the end of the day, it's not really free. But again, when you look at healthcare, you have to look at it from two different perspectives. Like many people mentioned here, for basic ailments, when I first came here, I came prepared. I had a box of medicines for uh, fever to the simplest of medicines to antibiotics. So I had prepared myself because I knew that getting healthcare when I land, it's going to be extremely difficult, next to impossible. And that has been the case even till now, since I don't have a family physician. I have to walk into these walk-in clinics, and 24 hours to 48 hours is the minimum waiting period, even for the walk-in clinics, right? So it's difficult. I have had several ear infections because of how dry the weather was. So even to get a basic eardrop, I had to have a prescription, because in Canada you need a prescription for everything. Um, so that way, it has been difficult in few cases, but for basic ailments, if you come prepared, and every year I go home back to India, which not many people can, I understand, but every year when I go, I get a full body checkup done, and I see my specialists because it's cheap, it's affordable. I do that before coming back. I know not many people can go back home every year, but I have to do that because here I know that I can't get a whole body checkup done just for this, sanity of my mind. I can't get that done, and that has been a real problem in healthcare. I prepared myself enough to at least get the basic ailments checked, be prepared for it. But if I had something major, in that scenario, yes, this healthcare becomes a boon. This becomes a blessing in that case. If I'm suffering from, say, a life-threatening diseases, in that case, I know that I don't have to wait for a long period, and there is healthcare in place to treat me if I have a life-threatening disease. But for something that is causing me pain, but still they see it as something minor, I have to wait for the next 3 or 4 months, and I have no say over it. So I guess if you look at basic ailments, it's a curse. If you look at life-threatening diseases, it's a boon. So I guess it works both ways. But for me personally, it has been a challenge, even to get a family physician in the last 3.5 years.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sharing. Now, I have something to share as well. And again, not being pro in whatever manners, I've been here for the last quite a few years, and thankfully haven't really gone through the problem of family physician. I was able to find one very, very quickly. But what I want to what none of the people have spoken about is the cost of drugs, cost of medicines that is extremely, extremely high in Canada. So even if a doctor prescribes you with medicine, by the time you get, that we get charged for a pharmacy, a prescription as well, which is also sometimes adds to the bill, which you don't take into account. And some of the medicines can be really, really very expensive. Now, another thing is when I'm saying back home, I'm referring to India. We are all doctors by ourselves. So within the family, you will always have somebody who will say, take this medicine, and giving antibiotics is so common. I mean, people pop antibiotics as if they were popping, a mint or a candy in most situations, which in Canada, they don't. In Canada, they are quite reserved in terms of prescribing antibiotics that quickly. That's first one. But to talk about a personal experience, very, very recently, and this would have not happened in India for sure. I absolutely know it, because this is a very, very humble family where the child suddenly, I mean, in the middle of the day, he's a 12-year-old child, a boy. He suddenly just collapsed in the middle of the day. The family freaked out. They obviously called 911. The ambulance was there in flat 3 minutes. The child was taken to the nearest hospital. They could not diagnose it early. It took them 48 hours to diagnose that the child had a very serious tumor in his brain. And from there on, they managed to gather the specialists who could treat that child from other parts of the country. They actually flew the child in a helicopter because the child was in Oshawa, which is a bit further away from downtown Toronto. Then they had to fly him down to the sick children's hospital downtown Toronto. They called in the top specialist, had the child operated on, and that fine. Thankfully, I met the child yesterday, and I'm so glad he's absolutely fine and fit and absolute. Of course, there is so much of rehabilitation which also happened for the child, and all of this was at zero cost to the family. Now, if this was to happen in most of the countries that we are migrating from, you can only imagine the whole pain, in addition to the cost that the family would have to go through. And not to talk about the politics that goes on within the hospitals, from one hospital to another hospital. So that was just a personal experience. And I agree with most of the people who have just said that the primary healthcare that you basically want for your minor ailments is the most difficult one to get in Canada, especially if you go to the emergencies. If you have even if you have a fracture, even if you have broken a bone, God forbid, if you go to the emergency, you could basically be waiting there for a few hours before somebody would even take a look at you. But if it was a life-threatening situation, then I guess this really takes care of all those issues straight away off the bat. Moving on to our next one, and I guess that becomes much more relevant now, and that is taxes. Let's talk about taxes, because when we make all the money and most of it is lost before it even comes to us, then it sort of touches a real nerve there. Let's start with Veronica. Go for it, Veronica.
Okay. Taxes is something I still don't understand, and I come from the banking industry, right? I hire an accountant because my net income 10 years ago from my net income in the summer when I left was about the same. I even had to pay my taxes back when I was on mat leave. So I said it's something that it's a shock every time I hire someone and I love hiring immigrants. I hire for ability to train. I would say they would come in December and they would say, oh, my bonus was X amount and now it's this. It was almost half. So through the years, I started every time I hire someone who was not from Canada explaining, right? I think it's something, as I say, I fully don't understand it, but the more money we make with my husband, the more it was taking away. And through the years, we did early on, as soon as you move, because in the US where I live now, you have bigger tax brackets. In Canada, as soon as you move to like middle upper class until you're super rich, you're almost in the same tax bracket. You need to, even if not educate yourself, find yourself an accountant who can help you get those very, very useful tax reduction. Like you have your retirement accounts where you can put money. You might be able to start a small business, and then even if you are not making money, I've since everything went bananas. I used to do our taxes, and then one year we had to pay like $40K. I was like, there's no way, I don't have $40K to pay. That was the first year we hired an accountant. I have a side business that help us with the taxes. It's very convoluted. Maybe somebody here is understand, but as I said, for me, and everything counts. Everything that, like for example, last year in Ontario was a tax vacation thing. We went to a Marriott for Niagara Falls, so we keep the receipts. Like keeping the receipts, and just to wrap it up, it's something that early on, as soon as you have a stable job, and I hope it's very early on for everyone, you need to get in touch and have an accountant, because otherwise you will get a surprise at the end of the year. And the Canada Revenue Agency takes time, but never forget. Even when I moved to the US, as soon as I changed my number, I got a whole bunch of things that I needed to talk to them and I needed to pay back. Yes. So for everyone, it's something very, very complicated and to take into account, because at the end of the day, I think everybody works very hard, and taxes do a lot of good things like public schools, but you want to keep your money, I think, home, right? I'll go back on mute and see what everybody else has to say.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Bias, go for it.
Okay, so tax, definitely. My husband is self-employed. I am salaried. Tax is much more complicated for him than me. Hands down, for salaried people, it's not as complicated. But I have a different feeling about this, because I'm from India, and in India, if you are making above a certain amount of money, which is not that high, honestly speaking, you pay more than 30% tax. So it's pretty much boils down to not the same percentage for sure, but there isn't a lot of difference on certain tax brackets for salaried people specifically. Is my belief. Definitely taxes are high, but we are actually, seeing our taxes go to into specific places. We see our taxes go into healthcare in whatever format it is, in infrastructure, in the facilities we are getting. We're actually seeing that our taxes are not going into pockets of certain people. So I think that is something to keep in mind. So that's all I had from my side. Hello.
Do we still have Kubeir with us?
uh
I'm not sure.
I think he just got
Sorry,
disconnected.
sorry about that, guys. Sorry, go for it. Yes, Shashank, go for it.
Yeah, so when it comes to taxes, right, I think we are very laser focused on personal income tax, but then there are other forms of taxes also that we should recognize, like depending on the province, GST, HST. If you own a
Shashank,
house,
can you speak into the microphone? I think your voice is not very clear.
am I audible now? Is it better?
Yeah, no, you're audible. Just speak into the microphone because I think your voice.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So when it comes to taxes, right, we generally always are laser focused on the personal income taxes. I believe there are other components of taxes also that we should take into account, right? Like the GST, HST, for example, and then also the if we own a house, property taxes, and everything. From my perspective, I think, I, like most of us on the panel, I also come from India, and I see that if I pay 30% of taxes in India, I don't see almost anything in return in terms of tangible services that I can avail of. If it's municipal taxes, I don't see the roads proper. If it's with respect to, I would say, federal taxes in India, I don't see anything that's commensurate of the taxes that we generally pay out. But in Canada, the one thing that I am pretty sure and I'm pretty confident is that taxes are put to good use. We may have a difference of opinion in terms of whether what is good versus what is bad, but then you are able to directly see the benefits of the taxes that you pay into the system, right? And I think that's where the benefit is that once you pay into the system, you reap the benefits of it, and then yeah, everybody wants to save. Sure, there are ways to get into it, like Veronica mentioned, like your registered accounts. Sure, yeah. So that's my
Yeah,
point of view on that.
thank you. Kimmy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
No.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So all I want to say is, so taxes. Again, I come from Dubai. If people are from Dubai, they know we've never paid taxes, right? So I have been somebody who has never paid taxes in my life. So it was the first time. It was very shocking. Of course, people who come from India, from other parts of the world, they pay income taxes, and then they move here, and it's almost similar. Tax brackets in Canada, I feel, are like you can, I think, start at what, 18 or 30%, and it goes on to up to 50% depending on what you're earning. I am a VP at one of the biggest banks in North America. I feel that the more I earn, the Canadian government is penalizing me. As Veronica rightly said, right? The more you earn over here, your tax brackets just keeps on increasing. Once you have reached a threshold of your tax bracket, which is almost like, I think, 49-50%, you don't get benefits from the government. So people, when you come from a different country, when you come over here and you say, okay, you know what? I am going to start my career. Okay, I'm at a 30% tax bracket and I move up to 40 to 45, whatever it is. After a point, when you have a family income that is over, I think, I don't know, 220 or 250, I think, you don't get any benefits from the government. So when people come here say, I have child benefits, you're not going to get it after a point of whatever you're earning. When you say health, we just spoke about what healthcare is. Of course, if there's an emergency, this is the best place to be. But for basic medicines are not available. Uh, Also, when you go and purchase something or you go eat somewhere in a restaurant, 13% is your HST, which is, at times, it feels criminal when you're going and buying something, right? Because and this 13%, by the way, is not mentioned on your sales price. So if you go to a store, if you want to buy something, you see something for like $20, you have to do the maths yourself, because that's $20 is not your bill. You're going to have a 13% additional to that before you actually can purchase something like this. As compared to, I think, The US has tax brackets, but I feel that, there are few places where taxes are much lower as compared to Toronto. So if you are at, either you be super rich and you're okay to pay that 50% of tax, and then you still feel fine. But if you are somebody who is reached that 50% bracket, but you are still at the starting, your salary is still at the starting of that 50% bracket, it's a big one for you. A lot of people do not end up saving over here. So it's all paycheck to paycheck, right? Your groceries are very expensive, cost of living, your housing, be it you're renting or you're paying your mortgage, everything is very expensive. If you are working a 9 to 5 job, it is not easy for an individual to save here. If you are doing your own business, or you are a contract, you've taken a contract, and you're you are working for yourself, and you open a company, which is much easier. It's very easy for you to get your taxes back, and get tax benefits. But that's not the case for people earning 9 to 5. Plus, you need to keep in mind that you need to have two individuals working in to be able to sustain, to be able to live a good life. Now, people who come from India, who come from anywhere else, they feel that, okay, um, if whatever I'm earning there, I will come and earn in Canada, and I'm going to get benefits from the government. Yes, you will get benefits from the government, but how much are you going to get? You have to realize that based on your tax bracket. If for me, I just want to say that, see, if for people who are really doing well back home in India or in Dubai or anywhere else, you are going to, and you're able to save from the salary that you get. You're able to do go out on leisure trips. You're able to eat out, like once a week, or whatever it is. You have help, you have house help. Then I think you are in a very good place versus coming over here and trying to start your career here. But if, yes, you are somebody who's earning paycheck to paycheck, you are somebody who's struggling financially, then you can come here, start a job, possibly earn more or equal to what you were earning back home, and you can get a lot of benefits from the government. So that's what I feel. Like, uh, it's it's just dependent on where you are, where do you stand in terms of your tax bracket, what you're earning. A life of a 9 to 5 is very different from a person who does a contract job or has their own business.
Thank you, Kimmy. Very, very fair point there. Sudarshan, go for it.
Yeah, something I would agree with what Kimi was saying there. Again, your decision to migrate should depend on how your job or your income is back home. um, if you're, again, I might put a statistical number there based on some research. This was for the US. It said if you earned more than 22 lakhs per annum in India, then you're better off being in India than moving to the US. I guess the number for Canada isn't very far off, maybe around 20, 25 lakhs. If you're earning more than that, then you can afford a far more luxurious life in India than doing that in Canada.
Okay, Dave, go for it.
I think you bring a very fair point, Sudarshan, when you talk about the comparison of the same lifestyle in Canada and India or any other country. Yes, 22 to 25 lakhs is what I read as well. So I guess it really depends on the motivation behind moving to a first world country. If you're moving only for the increase in income, in hard numbers, then yeah, it definitely makes sense to stay back home and earn more and save more. However, if you're moving for the lifestyle, the air quality, the infrastructure, and general lifestyle, and a first world passport, probably, then a lot of people will sacrifice that comparison in lifestyle when it comes to hard numbers. I guess that's why most people move anyway. But if you're moving only for an increase in income when you're already earning, probably 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs back home, then I guess it wouldn't make sense for you to move here just for that reason. Coming to taxes, I'm a middle class earner in Canada right now, and for every $100 that I get a raise on, I pay $50 to the government. Right? I don't even get to see it. So that is a deep cut for many people, right? Your salary increased by $2,000 this year, and you're paying $1,000 directly to the government. Add to it all the other kinds of taxes you pay. Sales tax, which Alberta doesn't have, but many other provinces do. Every time you walk to eat something, you're paying a significant portion of what's, the menu price. On top of it, you're paying. And there's also this culture here where if you don't pay at least 15% tip to the server, you are considered a cheapo, you know?
Yeah.
And that's indirect taxation, I guess, because those servers should be paid by the businesses. I know it's a very dividing opinion, I know that, but I'm just presenting my view here. If you're running a business, pay your employees. Why should your customers subsidize your payment? You should be paying for that because you are making profits out of it. But if you don't pay, if you pay 15%, okay, you're normal. I won't even say a thank you to you. If you're paying 20%, okay, all right. If you're paying 25%, that's ideal. From what I've heard from many of these articles and many of these opinionated videos, 25% is what you're expected to pay. We don't pay 25% if you're taking a takeaway from the restaurant, and you're judged for it. You're not even being served. So I guess there's a lot of opinionated thoughts here when it comes to taxation. But all in all, yes, you're getting some of it back with the infrastructure, with everything that you're getting here. But when it comes to making a decision based on how much you're earning and how much you're spending, it makes sense not to come here if you're coming only for the raise in money if you're earning above 25 lakhs back home.
Okay, great points, everybody. Thank you so much. But I want to sort of bring in a bit of a perspective here, right? Canada is the largest country in the world, no doubt about it. Of course, we already know that. But it also does not have that big a population. The population of Canada, statistically, is about 38 to 39 million people at this point of time, which basically means in order for the government to provide the infrastructure and to provide the facilities that we all expect out of that government, they have to pay significantly more. The cost of doing everything is significantly more, not to mention the labor cost, because there is a severe labor shortage. And because of that, everything has to go up. But how is government going to pay for it? Obviously by taxing the people. And that's how it sort of translates. So if you're choosing to come to a country which is less populated but large in expanse, then that probably is the price to pay for it, I guess. But on the other side of things, as Veronica mentioned, if you're smart about how to do your taxation, then there are always ways and means to, I won't say to cut the government out of the deserving taxes, but there are ways and ways to sort of figure out where you can pay lesser taxes than you are actually paying right now. Maybe find a different CA, give them more business, and then figure out a better way to do that. Right, but that's all fair point, and I absolutely agree with most of them. Let's talk about education and see where we stand with that. Do we all agree public schools free is a good thing? Yes, Veronica, go for it.
Okay, I have kids. And I was very happy with their school in Canada, but I think it's very difficult, and I was very privileged because when my first home in Toronto was a very, very tiny house in the neighborhood of Parkdale, where the public schools ratings were not very good. And I had like this moral dilemma. Do I want to just stay here because this is where we can afford now and we can do that? Or we should move and sacrifice a lot of savings, get a huge mortgage, and get to another public school. So we were able to move in Midtown Toronto and go to a really good public school for my kids. But I feel it was not really public because we were paying it with the mortgage. It sounds a little bit weird. And people who were in my neighborhood, but if you live in an apartment, you were not guaranteed to go to that school. So I was very lucky, again, for a privileged position that came from working our chicks off for 10 years, that we were able to send our kids to public school. That's in terms of schools. In terms of universities and colleges, I came as an international student and I did all my education with scholarships. I was very fortunate and very blessed. And I had great education because Canadian education is great, and that's what helped me later with my job. And even people who didn't have scholarship but were Canadians PR and could get OSAP and other bursaries, I think that's where you get a lot of benefits. So back to the basics before I leave the floor to other ones. Public education is amazing. Depends a lot on the neighborhood you are, depends a lot on the size of the resources you are. It's province by province. We need to remind everyone in this who's watching us that a lot of things like healthcare and schools is a provincial mandate. I have my sister who is a teacher in Edmonton, and she hasn't had a raise in 4 years, and she has more and more kids every year. Whether she had 30 kids in her class, I had 20 kids in my daughter's school. That's my personal experience again, and I'll leave the floor to see what everybody else has to say.
Okay, anybody else wants to add anything on education? Yes, Dave, go for it.
I can't speak much about primary education because I don't have kids yet. And but from what I've heard, um, it's free. Yes, the quality is good. You don't pay a dime for it. So that way, it sounds to be good. However, university education as an international student for me was pretty expensive. Not as expensive as US, but more expensive than probably other countries like Germany or any other country that I might have chosen. Um, the same education that I got here, I did my MBA from Concordia in Montreal. So I paid a significant amount of money for my education. However, colleagues that I had, my peers in the same class pursuing the same degree, they paid 15%, just 15% of what I paid because it was a public university. The quality was amazing, but they paid significantly lesser just because they were a resident here. So if you're a PR or if you are a citizen, you pay significantly lesser. That's where I guess a lot of the taxes that we mentioned in the previous subsection goes. So it's good that way if you're a resident, but for an international student, it can definitely be very expensive. Someone I know who is pursuing his bachelor's in engineering, they are spending, I guess, a crore. That's about, I guess, I don't know, in dollars, how much will that be, Kubeir?
100,000.
About 160,000
Yes,
approximately, give or take.
about $160,000 and more on their bachelor's in engineering. So I guess it's very expensive when it comes from international students' perspective. But if you're a resident, you can go by if you find public schools.
Oh yeah, I got that wrong. 120,000. Sorry, on that number. Yes, Kimmy, go for it.
So again, I don't have kids, so I'm just going to speak based on the experience of what I've seen with my friends around. And I think people are, yes, talking about, public schools for education, and the education is free. But then, as Veronica pointed out, as a parent, you'll obviously want to send your child to the best of schools, right? And the ratings of certain schools are going to be much higher than as compared to the others. But you have to remember that the schools where the ratings are really high, the area is very expensive to live in. So you're eventually, like, for example, if you're paying a rent of, I'm just making this up, these rents are not real right now, but if you're paying a rent of like 2,000 in a certain area where the schooling is, you'll find the school rating to be about like what, 5 or 6 out of 10, versus an area where you will be paying for the same house, you'll be paying actually $3,000 or $3,500, but have a school that is rated 8.5, 9, or even 9.5 for that matter. So I think you're somewhere paying for the school based on, like, because you have to live over here in Canada. Wherever you live, your PO box has to be the same as to be able to send your child to that school. Secondly, nobody is talking about daycares. I think daycares are very expensive. If you're two individuals who are working, you cannot manage to keep your child at home. Like, you don't have nannies here, so you have to send your child to daycare. Daycare is very expensive. Again, from my friends that I know, it used to be, I think, $1,500, and then it moved to $1,200. Yes, government is subsidizing that, but you're still paying a lot more. You're paying like at least $800 to send your child just to daycare. So again, it depends on people to people. You live in great areas, you get great public schools. You live in basic areas where you can afford the rent, probably the schools are not that great. For universities, if your child is very bright and they want to go to an Ivy League school, at least for your bachelor's, as far as my knowledge goes, I don't think Canada has any Ivy League schools. It's all in US. So even being a citizen in Canada, if you want to send your child to an Ivy League university like in Harvard or or Stanford, you have to send them there, and that's going to cost you. If it costs you, okay, even if they get like 20, 30, 50% scholarship, you still have to pay the 50%. And when that 50%, are you earning enough to be able to save so that your child can pay, or you're going to ask your child to take a student loan and start their life with knowing Indians, how we Desis work, we want to ensure that we're giving a child education where they don't have to start their life with having student loans, though it's very common here in Canada, I feel. But it's still there. So it's a decision that you have to make. You can either earn well, save in India or wherever you're staying, and send your child to an Ivy League school, or you stay in Canada, try to save money so that you can send them there. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you. Fair point. Anybody wants to add something on this comment? Primary education unanimously poor from what I don't agree with this, but I don't want to say anything to that one because then they say Kubeir is biased. Children are left to explore and study. Kids just exploit that option and don't study. So what would you rather do? Beat them up and say you have to study? Yeah, go for it, Veronica. You want to answer this comment?
Yeah, I think we have to get our mindsets. We're raising kids here. Our kids are Canadian. Let's start dating and accepting them by who they are. They are not the first generation immigrants. Why are we going to pass this trauma? And going, I back to the point, if my kid doesn't go to an Ivy League school, as long as they have a good life, pay their taxes. I went to Brandon University, Manitoba, a tiny school, tiny in Manitoba. You probably don't even apply there. And I have a PhD, I'll pay for it by the government of Canada because I excel. And I come from a middle-class family in Ecuador. So let your kids be whoever they want to be. Yes, my kids are here now in America, and it's very again, I did the research, moved to a neighborhood, and it's very individualistic here, and it's very academic compared to Canada, right? But what gives you Canada a good job, if you want Canadian kids, quote unquote, is the networking. You send your kids to whatever school, Western, UFT, Concordia, they have good networking. When I started working at a bank and RBC, I had no networking. But the people around me who were in consulting, making the same role, bigger salaries, it's like, oh, your cousin went golfing every weekend, because that's where the business deals are made. So to wrap up this point, I'm sorry, I'm very emotional about this. Let your kids be Canadian. Let your kids do whatever they want with their lives. It's their lives, not yours. And this is very controversial. And see, if they want a good education, they don't need to go to an Ivy League school. They will get the education that their marks, their Canada. And you want to save for education. Again, Canada is a country coming from a financial background where you go and invest. If you do at the RESP, the government helps you with that. I'm not saying it's completely paid. Let your kid work for it. Nobody has died for working at 14 in McDonald's. That's what I'm doing. My husband and I have we had a good life again after many years of a struggle. Both of us came as international students. My husband is Persian, I'm Ecuadorian. But I'll wrap it back. I respond to that comment. I'll go back on mute, and maybe somebody else had something else to say.
Okay, right, go for it, Bias.
So I just have something to add about the pedagogy, the way the kids are taught. I am in learning and development, so both for children and adult education, I have done a bit of study around that. I honestly feel that there are two ways of learning. There are multiple ways of learning, but two primary ways. One is rote-based learning, is what we use in a lot of South Asian countries, and one is a more applied way of learning, and Canada is on the other side. So it's different from the way we learned, and that doesn't necessarily mean that kids are allowed to do whatever they want and not study. Kids are asked to take responsibility for their education, and let's be real, it works. The markers of success after education are pretty good in Canada, right? So it does work, and it's not like one way. It's not that just because someone is not memorizing stuff and being forced into studying, and you must get 100 out of 100 in maths, that their education is poor. So education means several things. Getting marks and getting forced into a way of learning is not going to be conducive for them for the rest of their lives, especially when they grow up and they need to actually apply what they have learned. So that's all what I have.
Okay, thank you. I know we are running. Thank you, Dev. Just give me one moment, because I know we are already quite way behind on our time. There are so many other topics that I want to talk to everybody about. So we were going to move a bit faster now from here on, because otherwise we're going to be here until evening, and this will not end because there is so much to talk this way and that way. Let me move on to the next very, very important subject, which I think a lot of our viewers would also be interested in. and that is the job opportunities and how does it impact. Because hey, everything is to do with the jobs, right? Most of the people who come to Canada, they are either struggling or have struggled or continue to struggle with the job opportunities, whether they get something that they were looking for. Canadian experience, does it count, does it not count? How do people get run over with the fact of they do not get the jobs that they were looking in their field? So we'll take it one by one. Sudarshan, you want to go over it first?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of experience with this. So with Canada, let's say there are a few industries which are really big in terms of job opportunities, IT and banking, for example. If you are in these industries or can transform into these industries, then it's quite easy getting the first job in Canada. I did the same thing. I was in the media industry in India. I landed here. I tried looking for a job. Wasn't able to nail a similar kind of a role, but then I transitioned into being a project manager in the IT industry, and it worked. So that adaptability is important. And the second thing is, I guess everybody's been saying this, networking is the key. Your education and employment back home may not mean much, but you got to network like crazy once you get here to be able to break through into the market.
Okay, Kimmy, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, Kubeir. So, when it comes to job opportunities here, the first things a lot of us hear is that you have to start your career from scratch. Let me tell you, that's not true. It doesn't work like that. I think this is a mindset that people have. And because a lot of generations or your friends keep coming over here, they keep telling you have to start your career from scratch. And then, everybody comes from that mindset, oh, when I go to Canada, I'll begin again. No, you don't have to do that. As long as you can network, come here, join courses that will help you understand how Canadian organizations work and how you can excel in interviews. Secondly, bring enough funds for yourself. If you can, bring enough savings that can sustain you and not push you or put that pressure on you just take anything that you want. It's very easy for you to put out your 10-15 years of experience with back home, and then come over here and then you start again. As a human, I think people get very demotivated. They don't say it out loud because they have a family to run, or they want to they have to live over here. But I think that gets very demotivating, right? When you see someone working where in 15 years you were at a certain level and now you have to start again, and you see other people at that level or even in your home country back home. For somebody like me, it took me 8 months. I'm not even kidding you. It took me 8 months, but I got the job that I was doing at the exactly same level at, of course, a lower salary because, again, I'm paying taxes and everything over here. But it is just about, staying strong. You will have frustrations that will come in because you're not getting what you want, but it's about being focused and pushing and knowing that, yes, no, this is what I'm looking for. I gave multiple interviews. I've done a lot of networking, like, on LinkedIn. You just have to be, like, as you say in Hindi, right, besharam, and just message people out there that, this is what you're looking for. And most of the courses there are a lot of organizations, companies in Canada, I think, that provide you basic courses. Some are free, some are paid. I did a leadership course from one of the organizations, and I think, Ankit, I'll come back to you. I'll let you know where I did that from. But that was a paid course. Like, I had to pay about $500 plus like tax 565, but I could claim it from from the province, so I got the money back. So do those courses. And again, I'm going to really stress on this point. Please don't think that your experience back home does not count. There's nothing called a Canadian experience. As long as you're confident enough to talk, you can clearly state what you have done there and what you bring to the table. There are organizations that will be open to you and, give you the job that you deserve.
Thank you. Dev, you want to talk?
Yes. Thank you for your opinion, Kimmy. I think Kimmy it was.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. I'd like to differ a bit there because I have been in the job market since a while now, and when I was looking for my first job here, I guess it all boils down to who is in competition with you. You have the same experience, you have everything same, right? I even had a Canadian degree. I had an MBA from Canada. Now, when I'm competing against someone who have the same experience and skills as me, my 7 years of experience prior to having an experience in Canada is considered lesser than the 3 or 4 year experience someone has in Canada, even in the same field. So I would say that there's definitely this notion of Canadian experience simply because they understand the business and the culture better than probably an immigrant does. And it's true, yes, they understand it a little more than an immigrant. I guess that's where you going out of your way, like you mentioned, connecting to people, networking, and being patient in that process, which probably you don't have to be back home, where you probably get 3 offers in the next 1 month if you apply rigorously. Here, you have to apply to at least 100 jobs to get 3 interviews, and that's true. Every one of us has faced that, and that can significantly improve if you are networking properly. So that's the solution for it. So yes, the problem exists where you need a Canadian experience, you need a Canadian network, you need something that will help you compete with these other people that are in the competition, and the solution is be well prepared, be better connected, network, and you don't think that, okay, I'll apply to 10 jobs and I'll get 5 interviews. No, it doesn't work that way here. You have to apply properly to 100 jobs to be able to get just maybe 5 positive responses and 2 to 3 interviews out of that. So yeah, that's there. That was my 2 cents.
Okay, Bias, you want to say something there?
Yeah, so I've been in HR for a while here, and I've seen a lot of sides of the coin. I would not go into employment for IT. A lot of discussion there, but for non-IT folks, it does not mean that you're going to start from scratch. Also, do not set yourself short, and I completely agree with Kimmy here. I know it's a privilege for a lot of people to be able to wait for months on end. I had a similar experience as Kimmy. I waited for a while. I got my professional designation here, and that completely helped me get into a position that was similar to what I had in India, and I did not have any loss in experience. So, and I'm in HR, of course, I'm not in IT. So it's definitely possible. Please push yourself. And yeah, people with Canadian experience, they do have, they know about the people, the landscape, the culture here. Yes, that's their strength. The question to you is that what is your strength? You need to talk about transferable skills. There are a lot of skills that make South Asians good: critical thinking, our work ethic, our diversity of thought. Think about what makes you special, what makes you stand out, and bring that to the table, and you can have a very good shot at getting a good job. I also want to use this opportunity to give a shout out. I have been noticing over the past 3 years, especially as more and more of our diaspora join organizations, the recruiters and the talent acquisition professionals who are, from South Asia, they are trying their best to take out that stigma of Canadian education as and when possible. So a lot of places where if I have applied and the recruiter is Indian or, from South Asia, they have been trying to, take that away, that the problem of Canadian experience, and giving candidates a fair shot. So that's a shout out to them, and this has been improving over the years. So we are better today as compared to a few years back, for sure. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Veronica, you want to add something there?
Yeah, I agree with this point. When I started working, my first job interview that I landed after 100 applications, they said, "You're perfect for the role, but you have an accent." If they said that to me today, that was 2012, they said that to me today, that would get the company in trouble, right? So, and going back to the point, as someone who hire, I just want to give an advice to people. People hire for fit, right? I work in an organization where there were a lot of immigrants. And even though the other advice I would say, interview every 6 months. Every 6 months, I will go to the market and try to get a role. And I stay in the organization because with that other external offers, I was able to improve my salary. But people hire for fit in Canada. Everybody has the skills. I interview for product managers. I used to be the first round for interviews. And I will, as to say, HR has gone better. So I got a lot of people with out of Canada experience, like in Dubai, in India, really good experience. When I started the interview and I just asked them a question, like my question, I'll give you the tip of the question I asked for senior product manager roles. I was like, why should we hire you? And then I would ask, ask them, why shouldn't we hire you? And that's where people fail. People couldn't answer that question. So I always will hire for fit. Skills you can train, as long as I said most of the people I already selected for the interview had the basic skills that needed for the job or surpass the skills, but they would hire for fit. The people who are interviewing you, they are giving you their time. You have to be ready to listen and to make sure that that's someone you want to work with. It's with Kimi, I agree in most of the things. I think the experience differs. I know very qualified people who had to start from the beginning and very qualified people who had to do the other ones. But the people and for my husband, my partner, his career was like this. And then once he started networking, he had worked for big ones like Amazon, Uber. And it was because of people who knew him in a personal sense. They never worked with him, but they were willing to connect him because he was a good person to get those interviews. So yeah, fit, and networking. And I'll go back on mute. And yeah, the industry is changing for the best. I think slowly, but it's changing.
Thank you, Veronica. Yes, Shashank, we have your hand there. Go for it.
So I'm a senior product manager, and then I can say that there are three golden principles that I've learned in my job, right? First is research. What do you want to do? Like, I wanted to do a lateral career move, so I was not afraid of starting from, I would say, the beginning. Have a plan in mind. Do your research properly in terms of networking. I think I can't emphasize enough, because somebody mentioned 100 jobs, right? I would go even further and then say that I might have even applied for 600 or 700 jobs, and I would have gotten like 5 or 6 interviews in the first case. Now I apply for like 20 jobs, I get about 10 calls, right? So it improves over a period of time, and it certainly changes, but that's the most important thing: networking, research, right? And the third important thing is, we from immigrants, for some reason, are tied to the population centers in Canada, right? Like, be very open to move across Canada. Like, I studied in University of Waterloo. I did my master's there. I moved to Winnipeg for my first opportunity, and then moved back to Windsor, Vancouver, right? And this actually eventually leads to growth, because if there is excess demand, sure, your opportunities, you're competing with more people, like somebody said, who we are competing with. And then, yeah, salaries reduce and everything else comes in line with that, right? If you're ready to move, and then are ready to assimilate that new experience, then yeah, you can immediately grow. I had about 7 years experience back in India, and when I did my lateral shift, now I'm almost equivalent to the 7 years experience, or even more than what I've achieved in India, right? So it's these three things have really proven to be very helpful for me, and I definitely suggest anybody coming from India to, or any of the countries to Canada, do these three things, and then you would be on your path to success, right?
Okay, thank you so much, guys. I would like to add a few things there for different reasons, because those are not covered. Now, there are, I mean, most of the things that we've been speaking about are from the perspective of permanent residents, but that's not where it stops. Canada also has a huge population of international students, and of course, the open work permit holders, spouse work permit holders, and otherwise postgraduate work permit holders, who face increasingly challenges when they are looking, when they're out in the job market. Now, those could be for a variety of reasons. Could be because their expectations of wanting or trying to look for a job are a bit unrealistic based on the skills that they may have. Communication skills continue to be a big issue. I recruit a lot. I interview a lot. I recruit for our clients in different industry types. I interview a lot of people for our own companies. And I guess communication skills are the biggest challenge in most cases. But then it depends what kind of industry you're recruiting for. More than that, sometimes I think with Canadian experience is a requirement of the soft skills that people are looking for. And in certain industry types, for example, the sales, for example, accounting, for example, HR or human resources role, Canadian experience counts because of the local requirement of the local customs, the local laws, the local conditions as to how they may be applied for that specific position. Same thing goes for finance and banking as well. So as long as you have overcome that through, whether it's through skills, whether it's through education, then in most cases you might be able to find. Also, I mean, and this is where I believe, of course, I absolutely could be wrong. There is no harm in taking a step down or a step back in order to learn and then jump onto bigger, better roles if you can. A lot of times we are stuck with the idea that if I was in this position, I only need this position. Otherwise, it's demotivating. if you open up your mind to that job role being more of a learning experience rather than taking it as an economic factor, then you probably might look at it differently. Also, almost everybody comes to Canada with the job mindset that they want to have a job, they want to get into a job. The entrepreneurship still is something which needs to be developed, I guess, from the government side as well. But as an entrepreneur, there are plenty and plenty of opportunities. If you wanted to get into the business side of things, the government helps you a lot in that aspect. So do give that a look as well if you are ever considering, because what Canada does for you, it's giving you an opportunity to reset your life. And if in that reset you might want to branch out into a different industry, different occupation, maybe becoming an entrepreneur, then maybe that would be a situation which might help you long term. All right, we've already been on this call for more than almost an hour and a half. I know some of you might want to go out as well, but there are a couple of other very important things to talk about, which matter a lot to people who are making this decision when they call it Canada a deception or a scam, or whether it really is worth the time, worth what we want to talk about. And I know Kimmy will have something to talk about, but let's talk about this being an inclusive society. Is the place where you are or come from an inclusive society, Kimmy, or is Canada an inclusive society? Let's talk about that. Let's start with you.
Sure. So when you say inclusive society in terms of acceptance, yes.
I'm talking about tolerance, I'm talking about acceptance, I'm talking about LGBTQ, I'm talking about faith, interfaith, everything with that aspect, inclusive in totality, in everything. So you're free to do whatever you wish to do, whoever you wish to make, whoever you wish to be.
Absolutely. I mean, that is something that I would 100% agree. Canada is a very inclusive society. It does not matter, as Kubeir said, be it LGBTQ, whatever you have, whatever pronouns you have, whatever you want to do over here. People are really nice. Canadians, when they say that they are very, very nice, it's a fact. It is not something that is just built up. But if you ask somebody that you need some help, people will be there to help you out. If there is something that you really think that this is something that I want to do, people are there to help you do that. You can achieve your dreams. You want to work on a 9 to 5 job, you do that. You want to do a business, you do that. You come over here and you, like, everybody I feel is treated equally. Doesn't matter if it's a plumber coming to your house. It doesn't matter if there's if there are these individuals that you, if you can afford somebody to come and clean your house, people are treated equally. They're treated very nicely. They're paid well as well. I understand a lot of people would say that back home in India or in Dubai, you have cheap labor. Over here, you don't have cheap labor. Firstly, it's not easy to find somebody with those skill sets. Secondly, I think because of the equality that people have created here, a lot of people get paid at the same level. I remember one of my friend was saying that his garage door had an issue, and he called somebody to fix it. And while having a conversation, the guy said, "Oh, I'm a professor. I'm a university professor." And he was fixing garage doors. And so there's no judgment here. You can do whatever you want, and you will find it very exclusive. People coming from India, you'll find that you will miss a lot of things back home. You miss your family and everything, but you have places where you will find your Indian restaurants, you will find your chaat corners, you will find desis. So you will feel good about being over here. So that's what I feel about this place.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add something there? Yeah, go for it, Dave.
Canada is a country made by immigrants, right? The majority of the population here are immigrants. So it is inclusive. It is inclusive for every group, no matter what community you belong to, no matter what group you belong to. Everyone welcomes you with open arms. Everyone is nice. Everyone is polite. And everyone is respectful of your beliefs and whatever community you belong to. So that way, I think there is south of the border where you actually, you get to hear a lot of discrimination based on your color, based on a lot of things. North of the border here, it's much better in that respect. As Kimmy rightly mentioned, you will also find your own groups of people, your own food corners, your own chart corners. You'll get to, meet your own people. But I guess, because of that heterogeneity in the city, I guess it won't be as close to back home, where you will have one big society comprising of only your community. So even you have to be willing to accept other groups and other communities, people who accept you, and you also have to be willing to accept others. In Quebec, especially, it's a controversial topic. So in Montreal, the city I'm in right now, is pretty inclusive. You can speak in English, and everyone is willing to speak in English. But if you go outside of this city, especially in Quebec, this does not apply to the rest of Canada. But if you go to outside of this metropolis, then if you don't speak in French, then probably you'll feel like you're out of place a bit, because people want to preserve that feeling of being French-speaking province here. So I guess, yeah, that's how it is. But the rest of the Canada, even in Montreal, it's pretty inclusive and it's pretty nice. So I really enjoy that about this country.
Thank you. Dave. Yes, Bias, go for it.
You're on mute.
Had to happen once. Anyway, definitely Canada is very inclusive compared to several other countries for sure. But that doesn't change the fact that the IBR, as we say, incorporate inclusion and diversity always extends the best way, especially when you are having career progression. There is literally data saying that those people who belong to the BIPOC community, or people who are part of any minority group, they may not get as much of a career mobility as much as the cis white male people. So it's just data saying that. So do keep that in mind. But that's a factor everywhere else also, and we need to play to our strengths. We need to bring up the things that make us stand out, make us special. So it's important to work towards that. That's pretty much what I had to add to that conversation.
Thank you. When you guys are talking about inclusive society, do add the point of racism as well. Do you want to talk about racism that exists? I mean, we know we might hide under the shroud and say that it doesn't exist, but we all know that racism does exist. So you want to continue with that, Bias, if you wish to?
Yeah, I will do that. I think human beings are like deep down a little bit xenophobic. All of us, we are uncomfortable with people who don't look like us, people who don't talk like us, people with different habits. It might not be that racism is a very strong word, but yeah, like you said, it's a bit under the carpet. It's more like, not like people hate those who are not like them, but they are mistrustful, right? They don't want to take the risk on such people, or they don't know what to do with them, and that's definitely there. We keep talking about how Canadians are polite and how they are nice. They definitely are, but I personally often feel that they don't directly say what's there on their mind. And if I may use the word, a little bit passive aggressive. So it's not like all is hunky dory and polite and stuff. A lot of stuff is there on their mind, and once you work very closely with them, you realize that. Blatant display of racism is not very apparent. I'm sure some people would have had some one-off experiences, but it's much better. But it will keep impacting you. But there's another end to this. You know what? People, like, I think someone pointed it out. Just because someone is including you and not showing these racism tendencies towards you, you need to also reciprocate that. I have met a lot of people from my community who have very uncomfortable opinion about people belonging to a different race also. So it can go both ways. If you expect people to accept you and include you, you also have to accept that just because someone has a different way of life and a different way of thinking than you, doesn't mean that they are incorrect or they should be disrespected. So it goes both ways.
Thank you. Veronica, obviously you've been raising your hand a few times. Go for it.
I'll try to be short. So I'll start with people even looking at me. I did this little experiment because, if you know, Arrive is an immigrant platform. I used to be the lead researcher of that. And I applied for the same jobs with my last name before I got married, which is a Latin last name, and my current last name, which is a Persian last name. Same jobs, 30 places to apply. And for the one where I applied with my original last name, I got 5 callbacks. For the one that I applied with under my husband's last name, I got 12 callbacks. Same resume. Okay. Second example, and I'm still for the pro, and I think we as immigrants, it's our responsibility to come here with open minds and embrace what Canada has to give us. I think blatant racism is not there that much, but I do think there's a lot of unconscious bias, microaggression, and sometimes very passive aggressive racism. Like, oh, you are Latin and the workplace. Oh, you should be having your siesta. That's why you are 2 minutes late. But the other one that really hurt me, I used to live in a street where the whole street was mostly born and raised Canadian white families in Toronto. That's where I used to live. And the first week I moved, I was walking my kid, one, not this one, the other one. And I never dress up. This is the most I dress up. And this older gentleman, maybe in their 50s, start talking to me about how great it is to be a nanny in that neighborhood. And nothing against nannies. Like, that's a job, that's a very respectful job. And but yeah, those were my kids. Why couldn't a person who looks like me live in that neighborhood? And the second example, when my husband moved to Amazon to Uber, he was working in engineering. I told a couple of acquaintances at work, oh yeah, like he's working for Uber now, but I never mentioned what role or anything. You know, it's like water, chat, cooler, like we are there grabbing your coffee. And this couple of people assumed he was driving for Uber for like the longest time ever, until once I say, oh, he's moving on until this. And they say, oh, how are you guys holding up? So this is like these assumptions, like white people who look like me couldn't be doing those jobs, couldn't be living in that neighborhood. And it was never very blatant. Like, I was very scared to move to the US because I know of the racism against Latin people and Middle Eastern people. But here we are in where I'm living now. I haven't had any of those experiences like in Canada. So I said, yes, when we are in corporate environments, or as you say, Kubeir, I think like when you are an entrepreneur, you have these great opportunities to open your doors to different kinds of people. But be aware that it does exist. And maybe because I'm not from India, and I remember I worked with a lot of people of India, they had like huge neighbors or community. I come from this tiny country where I was there like by myself. I have this weird Jewish last name. I look this way. When people don't know in which box to put you, they will make a lot of assumptions about you.
I agree. And on that note, I just want to sort of add a little bit onto that and say that when you are immigrating to Canada, you are immigrating as a body, as physical self, but you are also bringing your mind with you, your mindset with you, with the way you think, the way you have been behaving, the way your circumstances are, the way you have been living your life, the way you have grown up. You are carrying all of that with you. You're carrying your biases with you. So it's not like just because you've crossed the borders, you've come into a different country, suddenly you are going to be a totally different person. It might take you a lot of time before you can come into that being where you can start looking at this society being inclusive, and hence you become part of the society. So I guess the root of the problem about anybody being racist, for that matter, belongs to us as individuals, because that is what we are carrying, our own biases with us when we come into this country. So when we say Canada is racist, Canada is not racist by its, I mean, actually, no, Canada is racist. And sorry about that. Because of the history of the country, if you see, Canada has been extremely racist. That there is so much of history of racism in this country. So I'm not going to say Canada is, or rather was, racist. But as people, as new immigrants, when we come into the country, we are carrying our own biases. We are carrying our own mindsets, the way we look at things, the way we perceive things, the way we behave at things, the way we react to things. Whether somebody commented just now that there were Indians who are renting out only to Indians, kind of a comment. Which one was that? Yes, there are several rental properties that only rent out to people from their own community. I mean, who do you blame for something like this? Wouldn't that be the people who are immigrating to Canada? And then it could be you, it could be me, it could be anybody else. But when we collectively form that same group of people in society, then we become racist, because then we are trying to give preference to people who we are comfortable with, who we know, who are from our community, from our group. And that's where the groupisms happen. So as long as we are aware, as long as we are familiar with the concept that you have to be inclusive, in the sense like it's not guaranteed that only if you will rent out your properties to people from your country would they be better tenants versus a person from a different country. So sometimes maybe give it a chance, give it sort of, go out and take a risk if you want a little bit, and then hopefully you'll realize it's not that bad. Right. I know I want to wrap this up because it's now going way beyond the time that we wanted to sort of be online. But I have just last two points to talk about before I let you guys go. Thank you so much for having this patience of being around. But let's talk about this, because this is something which a lot of people talk about. Again, this is very individual. This is very, very personal. It's very subjective. But It is at the bottom of so many things. Why do people move to Canada? People move to Canada for jobs, for money, for what's they call quality of life. How do you define quality of life? Because it's so personal. But let's start with Kimi.
Okay, so as I said, I moved from Dubai, so I cannot really, talk about people who are coming from India. But in the Middle East, first I will talk about that. I had help, right? I had people who would come over, clean the house because my husband and I both worked. We had a cook who used to come and cook for us, all of that. So when you and as Kubeir rightly said, your quality of life is something that is very personal, right? For me, if I come here and I'm earning at a good level, or I can afford somebody to come and do the household work for me, it's good. But that's not the case, because again, you do end up spending a lot of money on taxes. You do end up uh, spending a lot of money on the way you're living, on your basic groceries and stuff, that you cannot afford basic house help. Now, quality of life, people over here talk about, what, there is a lot of work life balance. What is a work life balance for people? For me, a work life balance is when I finish my office work, I don't have to do my housework, that's over, and then I have the time that's left that I can spend with my family. You cannot, for me, I feel you cannot say that you have a work life balance just because you are going to work at 9 o'clock, you're finishing your job at 5 o'clock exactly, you don't have to stay back late, and then you're coming home, but you have a lot of work at home. You have to do your laundry, you have to do your clean, you have to clean up, you have to cook, you have to take care of your kid. There's so many things that come. By the time you finish doing all of that, it's already 8, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. So for me, I feel that's not work life balance. That you are out actually working the entire day, 9 to 5 for somebody else, and after that for yourself. So uh, again, it's a very personal opinion. I would definitely prefer that, I have help here, so I have more time to spend with my family. The second thing is quality of life. Coming from India, I think you would find that, this is a step up of life in terms of the place is cleaner, the quality of air is very nice, all of that. But I come from the Middle East. So for me, and a lot of Middle East audience, if they're hearing, I think they can resonate that we come from a a place that is extremely, again, clean. The quality of life is very nice. I have a lot of social life over here. If you are a social person, I think you're really going to miss that, because people are so busy in their everyday lives, and weekends they're again busy because they have to prepare for the entire week. You have meal preps to do. You think that, I want to finish my laundry, I want to do everything so that my week goes well. So it depends on you as an individual. Do you want, like, okay, I'll just wrap it up here saying that, if you're coming from India, probably it's a step up. But for me, it was not really a step up. Coming from Middle East, I found that, there are a lot of things that I had to adjust to when it comes to life. Yeah.
Before we go on to other participants, but Kimi, I have one question for you, because you talk so much about Middle East, and I have spent a majority of my life in Dubai as well. But I want to ask you, is your life in Dubai permanent?
So when you talk about permanency, so that is why we're here, right? I came here on a
No,
PR.
I'm just
I
no,
lived
because every
25
time
years.
we give a reference of a place versus this, and you sort of refer back to that, because at the end of the day, there has to be a reason why I mean, in spite of all these issues, in spite of all that, you did choose, or rather, you thought of choosing Canada. So my question is, when the quality of life as defined by somebody else who can do your chores versus you having to first go to a job and then work for yourself, uh, would sort of you being back in Dubai, would you can you be there permanently without any issues whatsoever?
So I've lived there for 25 years. So my dad moved there. I was a kid. I moved there. So if you that's why when I sent my comment also, I said the same thing. You're asking a child who's always lived in Dubai. I don't know how what the life is in India, right? It's like you are asking a child who always lived in Canada. They would be used to this kind of life. So I am used to the Middle East kind of life. I've lived there all my life. My parents finally decided to. My dad retired. They had to go back. Yes, and I know that is a fact. In Middle East, regardless you're born in Dubai or not, you don't get citizenship. So eventually you have to move back to your country. Dubai does not uh, Dubai does not advertise as saying this is your permanent home. They advertise it as, people come there, come for a couple of years, and they go back. And that's the mindset that everybody has. For me, being a Dubai child, I could not see myself living in India because, again, I've never lived there. So for me, I had to either find a second place that I can call home. And that's why my husband and I got a permanent residency and we moved here. It's not that I do not miss my life in Dubai. Of course, I was earning way better in Dubai. My quality of life was way better in Dubai. The permanency aspect is what is actually the only thing that got me to Canada.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
what it is.
Thank you. Moving on. Yes, Veronica, go for it.
I think to wrap up, we have to do it's like you have to do therapy on yourself. What kind of life do you want to live? And for me, it's something that you mentioned, Kubeir, before. Mommy, can you put me down? See, these kids, one, if you have this, if you're not. Second, I think, and if you don't want kids, I think if you still the answer would be yes. Second, is you can reinvent yourself. And that opportunity is so, like, I never thought I would marry outside my culture. I have 3 degrees. I haven't used any of them. I've always worked in jobs that are not related. Yes, I had to work very hard. I stay in my job way past 5 p.m. because I like what I did, because it was not the case when I started in Canada. As I said to everyone, it took almost 10 years to build this wonderful life. But I think it's such a personal decision that you have to decide. Like, yes, now, for example, I live in LA with a NAFTA work visa that is for Canadians. So yeah, Canada might be your permanent home, but you might have this opportunity to live in good weather for 2-3 years, or maybe the sponsor goes and gives you a green card. The life in Canada is not the life that you go and like, okay, I'm going to be an accountant and this is going to be my life for 40 years. There are constant layoffs, things happen. Nobody could imagine COVID, whether you were in Canada or not. But it is a place where you, with a lot of hard work, you can reinvent yourself over and over again. And if you are a person who's not afraid of taking risks, and I never call home. I didn't call home until I gave birth to my first child. I already had Canadian pass. No, I became a Canadian citizen when I was 8 months pregnant with my first child. And that's when I finally, after so many years away, okay, Canada is home. And now my life is right now here in LA, so I don't know what's going to happen. But just to wrap it up, it's going to take a lot of work, and you can talk about the quality of air, the France, whatever, and you're going to have to give a lot up. I gave my identity up, and that's a lot, because English, I don't speak it perfectly. Of course, I have a strong accent. Spanish, I dream in English every day now, and Spanish, now in LA, I'm talking more Spanish than the 20 years previously in Canada. So yeah, personal question, do a lot of introspection, and know that if you're a person who's not afraid of risk, then yes, Canada is for you.
Okay, thank you so much there, Veronica. Yes, Dave, go ahead.
I think if you're planning to move to Canada, one thing that should be ingrained in you is that you have to be open to change. And that is one thing that most people don't want to do. People want to move with their same old life, same old beliefs, and whatever they are, they want to bring that in Canada and establish that here. If that is something that you want to do, quality of life in Canada is bad because your social life will reduce. You will be in a city where you won't have a huge community that you belong to. You won't, constantly interact with what you liked doing earlier. But if you're moving here, you should be open to change, and that change can be unpredictable. But for most of the cases, it will be good. I had asthma back home when I was in India, yeah, because of the air quality, because of whatever. Within a month in Canada, my asthma was completely gone, maybe because of the great air quality. Now, that is a great positive that I added in my life. I met great people from different communities, different nations, other different hobbies that I pursued. I went skiing, I went skating. So all of these has helped me build a different quality of life that I had back home. So I was open to change, and therefore I could build a good quality of life centered around these activities and these positives that I encountered. Um, yes, there are cons if you see it that way. Like for example, you had a good say infrastructure. Like Kimmy mentioned, in Dubai, you had a good infrastructure, you had facilities available, but it also depends on how you define quality of life. Because here there's a lot of nature. You can see deers in your backyard if you live in the suburbs. So if you're a nature person, I guess that's something that you won't find in a big concrete, city like Dubai,
You
for
can use the
example.
word jungle.
Yes, concrete jungle, exactly. Like these big cities. But if you are a nature person, well, when I was in Calgary, Banff Rockies was 1.5 hours away. There are national parks in every province in Canada, less than 1 hour drive away. And by national parks, I don't mean just city parks, but big, huge parks spread across, kilometers and then maybe even hundreds of kilometers. So you have nature, you have a lot to do, and I guess that completely increases your quality of life if you know what you want and if you're open to change. Yeah, those were my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bias, yes, go for it.
Just would like to reiterate on open to change, open mind, open this wish to experience something new. Being in Canada, you have access to a multicultural environment. You can meet people all around the world, learn from them, learn from their culture, embrace what's good in their culture, what's good in your culture, and you can actually live your best life, but you only need to be open. It's very important, and it's very important also to be self-sufficient. Even I'm from a background and a family where I had a help, but more I think about it, I realize that certain countries, these luxuries that some of us middle class and upper middle class have, are at the expense of someone else, are at the backs of someone else. There are certain section of the society who are not getting paid a livable wage or a minimum wage, and at what cost are we having that luxury? And that social mobility and that equity and equality to me is a pro. Yeah, it sucks to be spending so much time doing my personal chores, but again, like, we are different people, right? So different people have different priorities, and I'm happy that it's not at the cost of someone else, because there are countries who are known to be on the backs of immigrants who have a very different life and a very different um, you know um, situation, and they don't have just the rights that the rich people do. So I am happy that Canada is not like that. So it's very important to have the proper quality of life, to be able to also be create new social circles, make new friends, and it's very important, because how much ever awesome Canada is, beautiful air. Oh, I also had my asthma absolutely go away once I came to Canada. So yeah, infrastructure, all of these nice things, you still will miss your family and your friends, and that's always going to suck for you. So it's important to kind of little bit try to mitigate that by creating new friends here, by meeting new people. It's difficult, especially as adults, to make friends. The winters, like, it's not, the cold is not the problem, but it gets really depressing. Let's be real, it does get depressing. So please do invest in your health, your mental and physical health. Make friends and try to experience new things. It would make the journey and the transition a bit easier for you.
Thank you. Shashank, you had something to add?
Yeah. So I agree with all the points that all the people made here, right? So with respect to quality of life, I was earning, like somebody quoted some figure which was, if earned in India wouldn't make any sense to move to Canada, right? I was earning those figures, but the reason why I moved to Canada was purely because of quality of life. I used to work from 8, 9 in the morning till 12 or even later, right? So what good is it where you have everybody tending to you, but then you can't enjoy whatever you're earning? And here, that's the first thing that I kind of figured out. After 5 o'clock, what do you do? Sure, there are chores, but then I don't think chores take up like 40 hours a day. It's not equivalent to another job, right? So after that, what do you do? How do you engage yourself over a weekend? Go on treks, go on, I would say, enjoy the nature. And I think Canada has a lot of nature to enjoy, and that's where I've found the best improvements in my quality of life. And I would say that even before me, someone mentioned that winters can get depressing. I assure you that there are sufficient activities if we are enterprising enough to go out to engage ourselves even in winter, right? Skiing, snowshoeing, trekking, so many activities that we can actually go ahead, and then if we are open, we can surely actually improve our quality of life by leaps and bounds. Right. So that's my perspective.
I'll
Right.
just add one sentence,
Yes. Go
Shashank.
ahead.
Here. I dreaded 4 winters in 3 winters in Canada. This winter was one of my best winters ever. And at the end of the winter, when it was going to the positives, I did not want the winter to end
Yep.
because I was pursuing skating and skiing, and I was totally into it, and I could enjoy nature even in winter on these ski parks. I had a season pass, and it was wonderful. So you have to be open to trying new things. Again, I guess you will enjoy even the dreaded winter here.
Yep.
Because this is what I find funniest when I hear people's comment and they say, "Oh, it's so cold in Canada." You said Canada. Canada is synonymous with cold and winter. So why are you even complaining about the weather the minute you have decided to come to? Because the minute you said, "I want to go to Canada," that basically says you are open to cold weather.
You're
Then
thinking
why
-20
say,
immediately.
yeah, and then why say, "Oh, 6 months is winters or 8 months is winters"? Well, you knew this, right? Didn't you? I mean, yeah, okay, all right. So I'm going to just round this off now with the last subject, rather last point here, and this is importance of research. So everybody, please, your closing comments, and please pay emphasis on: would you call Canada a scam if you have conducted proper research before you come to Canada? Start with Bias. Go ahead.
That was an interesting discussion, but it does bring about the topic of research. It's very there is a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of people pushing their agenda. There are people who are making money off this legally and illegally. It's very important to safeguard your interest. Research is very important. Information is out there. And just research, again, to my point, research doesn't necessarily just mean about the realities. It's also important to acknowledge and understand what you want in life. It's difficult for especially young students to know what they want in life because they're in a that is going to change if you're 19, 20. Your priorities will change, but it's important to see if your values align with the sort of life you're going to get in Canada. My advice would be definitely to talk to people, talk to your peers, talk to people who are in your profession and with life situation and family situation same as yours. They will be able to give you a better perspective of what life can be here. So please, make those steps. Make sure you actually are aware of what your life is going to be as much as possible, so that it's not so much of a shock. And that way, it can be Canada can be a dream for you if you do the right research. So that's the most critical part here.
Thank you, Bias. Thank you, Veronica.
Okay, wrapping it up. First, Canada, please. Like a lot of people are trying to be in a like a new generation of immigration consultants. If you're hiring anyone to come here, please check their license. Like you yourself put your license right in front of there. That's very important. There is a whole industry, as somebody mentioned, that it's a scam. Please don't go there. Canada is a good country if you do it the right way, if you do it the legal way. Second of all, as much research you can do them. I am a researcher by training. You can, but it's like the difference between trying a cake and somebody telling you how that cake is going to turn out. Do all the research you can, as some other people have been saying, like with your friends, with your network, with whatever. But no, I'm taking points from other people that here you are going to have to face with a lot of change. So don't come unprepared. Research on the basics that don't change the cost of living, your program, and come what I tell. I'm a mentor to a lot of immigrants now. What I tell them is I have no idea professionally where I'm going to be in 5 years. But when you first come, you need a plan for yourself, like a 2-year plan and a 5-year plan. And that's going to change, but it gives you at least a basic sense of the finances that you need. And once you have that, you will see maybe you will have to take a job, like you were saying, lower. Maybe you don't. Maybe you'll have to switch provinces. But at least it gives you like a starting point. That's what I'm going to wrap up. Good luck to everyone who's watching and would love to come to Canada.
Thank you, Veronica. Shashank?
Yeah, I couldn't emphasize how important the matter of research is. Just to highlight, when I was working in India, I worked for about 7 years, and then when I decided to move, I wanted to apply for masters. While I was applying for masters, I was actively researching for what are my pathways for permanent residency, be it federal, be it Canadian experience class, be it provincial nomination. while I was applying for provincial nomination, I was already figuring out, trying to say as to what are the requirements for citizenship, and then how can I actually be ahead of the curve, right? And then what? So if that's about the immigration process, like somebody mentioned in the comments, right? Immigration is a path, not the destination. I think that's a really good way to perceive the immigration process, right? And then with respect to jobs, like Veronica said, have a plan in mind. Why are you here? What do you want? What is it? What are your expectations? 2 years, 5 years, whatever works for you, you should be actually having that plan. And then you should also have mitigation plans, right? What would happen if I don't get a FSW invite? What will happen if I don't get a CEC invite? Am I ready to move to a Manitoba where I can get a job and then and get a provincial nomination from there? Am I willing to do that? What are the costs of that? What are the risks of that? If family matters to you a lot, then can I actually get my entire family, uncles and aunts? Not possible, right? That's not a realistic expectation if you're moving with that kind of a thing. If you say that, hey, like I want a family support, or if I would want somebody to actually actively help in my daily chores, be ready to spend something, because quality of life is not only for you but for everybody who is actually supporting you and in this society as well, right? So therefore be planned, do adequate amount of research, and therefore you would definitely succeed, if not today, tomorrow. But then research is the utmost important thing before coming to Canada. Without research, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Thank you, Shashank. Very important point there. Go for it, Dave.
All right, let's wrap it up. So, importance of research, two big things: internal research and external research. Internal research, you have to introspect and you have to really journal it out with plan what you want. If you're coming here just to move to a country, no matter what's the way, you will be scammed off $35,000. And if you're buying, LMIAs that way, well, you really need to be aware of it. If someone is sending you an email of a job offer when you haven't even applied, well, it's your luck, and it's on you to get scammed then, right? So you have to research on what you want and why you want it. That's very important. External research, you have to really go through all the possible information available out there. And kudos to you, Kubeir, Kamal, for doing such a brilliant job at educating people from every background, and even even doing it in Hindi. So congrats to you and kudos to you for doing that. And just like Kubeir, there are other people with genuine channels, with genuine materials out there who are trying to help you. So take advantage of this. Take advantage of the information on government websites, and educate yourself about it. If you don't have the time, or if you don't have the patience to do it, then maybe even hire someone, an immigration lawyer, an immigration consultant who knows his stuff, right? But check his credentials, like someone mentioned here. So if you have the proper research done, it is a boon, it is a blessing. And if you have internal research done, you will be happy here. If you don't do both of those, then it can be a scam for you, and you will regret in the long run, only to be wishing to go back to your home country in a few months.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Kimmy, you want to wrap up?
Yes. So thank you everyone for listening in. So just my 2 cents would be that yes, research is extremely important. Whether you're coming from the Middle East, whether you come from India or any other part of the world, you are coming to a new country altogether. There are pros and cons of every country. Maybe the place that you're living, you feel that, these are the positives, these are the negatives. When you come to Canada, it also has its positives and its negatives. You should be focusing on yourself or your family, thinking that yes, when I move to Canada, what is my goal? What do I want to achieve? If you're moving here, my first thing is people should try to have enough savings, because Canada is a very expensive place. When you are coming here, you should try to ensure that you have at least savings of at least 8 months to a year, where you can pay your rents, you can eat food, you can take care of your family, all of that. Medical will follow. When you come over here, you will get OHIP cards. You can go visit a doctor, you can see here. But ensure that you're financially strong enough when you're moving to Canada, because initial years can be very difficult. Your especially your first year, right? I have so many friends, we all moved almost at the similar time, and the first year of everybody, regardless of how they were doing back home, they did have to go through a lot of challenges. So do your research, speak to people who are living in Canada, instead of just reading comments or getting influenced by what people are commenting. Social media, you can see a lot of things. People are trying to scam you on social media. They're trying to they would tell you that no, Canada is not a great place, or some people would say Canada is a good place. I think over here what Kubeir has tried to do is for people that are living outside of Canada and who've not moved here, to give you an insight of what newcomers or immigrants like us, how we feel, and what has been our experience, or what has been our points of coming here. So research, please do it for yourself. Have enough money, come here so that it can sustain you, and then look for jobs and everything. Have a 1 year, a 3 year, 5 year plan for yourself, and I think that's when it's going to make your life a little more easier.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kimmy. Well, it's back to me trying to wrap this thing up. First of all, thank you, Kimmy. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Shashank. Thank you, Bias. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Sudarshan, for becoming the panelists today, for spending your time 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon just to sort of give you their perspective, their views on why you should or you shouldn't consider Canada as a scam, as a deception, as a dream. Just my 2 bits, and that is, I absolutely agree that Canada is not for everyone. It is not. I mean, I would be stupid to even suggest that it's for everybody and everybody should come and everybody will make it, everybody will become rich, everybody will have the perfect life. It's not. There is no utopia, right? There is no perfect country in the world. There is every single country out there in the world. Every single place will have its pros, it will have its cons. It all depends upon you. What do you want from the place? So this place has its own set of what it can give you, but it also needs something for you in return. It's a two-way street. It's not only what you can take from the country, but you're not going to give. As somebody said, right? Think not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. I think something similar applies here as well. In the larger scheme of things, Canada definitely needs immigrants. It's, as I said, it's a large country with a very small population. It definitely needs people. It definitely needs the taxes, because that's how it can then provide the infrastructure or the facilities that it so nicely does to so many of its citizens and people who live here. Yes, we will always have the difference of opinion. Some of us will think it's a beautiful place to be. Some of us will think it's a waste of time and I was better off where I was. At any point of time, if you feel that this was something where you wasted your time, don't think of it as a waste of time. Rather, think of it as a learning in your life of you having tried something totally different. Yes, it's a common agreement that if you're doing very well in your job, in your salary, in your economic situation, wherever you are in the world, maybe Canada is not for you. But if you want to give a new lifestyle a chance, if you want to give a new way of life a chance, good clean air, clean water, good people, welcoming people, inclusive society, then maybe Canada could be that place for you. Because if you love green, if you love the nature, if you love outdoors, then this is where you might want to be. That's me wrapping up. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you everybody who has tuned in and has stuck around with us for more than 2 hours. I appreciate it. I shall see you again next time. Until such time, stay safe, take care, and be good.